The late Prime Minister Nehru. The story of the Ganges from her source to the sea, from old times to new, is the story of India's civilization and culture, of the rise and fall of empires, of great and proud cities, of the adventure of man and the quest of the mind which has so occupied India's thinkers, of the richness and fulfillment of life, as well as its denial and renunciation, of growth and decay, of life and death. This is that story. For every one of India's diverse peoples speaking with more than 800 different tongues, from nativity in a Himalayan glacier, through maturity in the plains to finality in the Bay of Bengal, the Ganges is the slender ribbon that laces India together, the river whose common worship unites a continent and welds it into a nation. And this is Haridwar. First city of the plains touched by Mother Ganges, one of India's 7 holy cities. 1,000 years ago, Haridwar was ancient, and through the centuries, pilgrims have journeyed from every village in India to this most sacred spot. They come to worship in the temples and to cleanse body and soul by bathing in the Ganges from the marble steps or ghats that front the river. Now for the weary pilgrim, the supreme moment. Gunga Mai Ki Jai, the pilgrims shout. Victory to Ganges, the mother. Delhi, capital of India, gateway to the rich plain of the Ganges. Hold this city conquerors have known, and you command India. Imperial Britain held it, adding a new city, New Delhi, before world wars crumbled the empire. Now Indians rule from buildings where once proud Britons stood. Other conquerors left their mark in masonry. The fierce Moguls, who ruled 200 years, built echoing tombs of oriental splendor. Before them, the first Muslim invaders, bringing Allah and the sword, raised their Tower of Victory, the Qutub Minar, on ruins of an even older Hindu civilization. A relic of that Hindu past is found nearby, a pillar of pure wrought iron that keeps a secret still. What craftsman hammered metal that for 15 centuries could stand alone, outdoors, collecting not one speck of rust? In modern Delhi, an ancient observatory. Huge instruments of stone built by an Indian Galileo to mark the passage of time. A work of titans, executed by jewelers. Now the flag of free India blows where once so many alien banners flew. Each conqueror has been conquered, for always in the fruit of first victory lies the seed of last defeat. No man can hold for all time that which is not rightfully his. Of all who ruled, none left a mark more lasting than the British. They gave the people Anglo-Saxon concepts of justice, administration, education, and above all, the English language, which is the key to the richest literature of ideas, science, and progress. With this key, India was able, finally, in 1947, to open the way to freedom. Few nations honor another nation's dead. In Lucknow on the Ganges plain, lavish city of Muslim mosque and palace, there is a monument to British courage that is preserved intact for all time by the state of India. Amid flowering gardens, the ruins of the Residency stand, reminding of 1857 and the revolt of Indian troops. Mutiny, the British called it. 3,000 Britons, men, women, and children, were here besieged. And as the poet Tennyson described it later, there hailed on our houses and halls death from their rifle bullets, death from their cannonballs, death in our innermost chamber, death at our slight barricade, death while we stood with musket, death while we stooped to spade, death to the dying, wounds to the wounded. For often there fell, striking the hospital wall, crashing through it, their shot and shell. On the Ganges flows, on from Allahabad to Mirzapur, where the first bridge of boats connects the banks. In blinding sunlight and choking dust, the ever-changing panorama of Indian life is revealed. Only at noonday, when the sun is cruelest, does the pace slacken and weary animals find relief in the soothing waters of the Ganges. In this, the 20th century, much of India still moves at the pace of the bullock cart. Age-old ways and ideas, rooted deep in tradition, are difficult to change. It is perhaps characteristic in Indian life that in more ways than one, the hand is vested with an almost mystical meaning. In temple rites, gesture is more eloquent than language. In dance, the hand symbolizes a myriad meanings. And in village life, it is the hand of the untutored poor performing its mechanical task with a smoothness oiled by time. In the movement of the peasant's hands, there is drudgery, but also beauty and dignity. These ways of agriculture were ancient when Alexander the Great invaded India more than 3 centuries before Christ. The leaders of modern India sitting in New Delhi know it, and they know that it must be changed. A nation cannot move at the pace of the ox in the age of the jet. Yet the task is Herculean. India is being modernized. There has been much progress since independence, and few people can point to such a record of achievement. But much remains to be done. The hand that holds the hammer must be put to the wheel of the mechanical harvester and the modern plow, if the nation is to survive. is an agricultural nation. Most of her population are farm workers, the very backbone of her economy. With a mounting birth rate, the hungry mouths cry out for greater farm production. Sadly, so great is the problem, that call all too often goes unheard in too many villages. The hands perform their appointed tasks smoothly, but oh so slowly. Catching the morning breeze, a stately ship glides down the Ganges past this, the first city of the Hindus. Ancient of ancient, holy of holy, Benares. In the morning, to the rhythmic beat of washermen pounding clothes on harsh stone, the symphony of life on Benares Ghats begins diminuendo. Women's voices, often softly singing hymns to the god Shiva, float down Mother Ganges. They journey days, even months, to come at last to this destination of their spiritual odyssey. For as Mecca is to the Muslim, Jerusalem to the Christian, so Benares is to the Hindu. High caste and low, pauper and priest, men and women, all bathe side by side. For on the steps of this vast outdoor temple, there can be no distinctions. After the early morning bath, some pilgrims mark their foreheads in bright colors with signs of their faith and show that they have made the spiritual voyage to Benares. This daily ritual, part of a religion that was old when Moses descended from Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments. Today, as in centuries past, with floral offerings to Ganges the Mother, the believer enters the crowded waters and prays, reciting the many names of the Creator. Close by, a pious man performs a breathing exercise. Control of the body, Hindus believe, is but a step toward mastery of the mind, which leads to closer union with God. Amid all the clamor of life on the crowded ghats, there is the stillness of death. For along the banks of the Ganges, the full cycle of men's earthly years can be seen. This is one of the holiest places in Benares. Called Manikarnika, it is the burning ghat. To those who believe in reincarnation, death is but another phase in the endless cycle of birth and rebirth. The last dip in the sacred river. Beside the dead, the living bathes. Both must be purified. Only then can the living take part in the final ceremony. After bathing in the sacred river, the eldest male relative of the deceased walks 7 times round the pyre. As he walks, he chants a prayer, lightly touching the head of the shrouded figure with the wand of jute sticks as he completes each round. With hardly a backward glance, the relatives of the departed leave the ghats. In their eyes, the ceremony has been not an act of destruction, but of deliverance. On the outskirts of Benares, a few miles from the Ganges, is another holy place. Here in Sarnath, more than 2,500 years ago, the Lord Buddha delivered, in the quietness of a deer park, his first sermon. He preached the golden mean, the middle path between the extremes of life. He was a reformer against the established Hinduism of his day. His teachings lighted a spark that fired men's minds, and his words were carried to most of the lands of Asia to take root and flourish. While today Buddhism has mostly disappeared from India, the land of its origin, yet such was the mark he made by his words and deeds that all Hindus regard him as an incarnation of one of their chief deities, the god Vishnu. Pictured on the walls of this temple in Sarnath is the legend of Buddha. Born of royal parents, the infant at birth could walk, a sign of his great holiness. Knowing nothing of suffering and sorrow, he reached manhood and then, shocked by the misery around him, renounced the world and went forth to find a solution to life's problems. As a searcher after truth, he became a disciple of many teachers. None satisfied him. He subjected himself to the most rigorous fast, but at death's door discovered that a life given to self-mortification was painful, ignoble, and profitless. So, breaking his fast, he journeyed on to Bodh Gaya, and there, under the sacred Bodhi tree, began his meditation. Evil spirits and demons of desire tempted him. All night they screamed, cursed, and cajoled, but he conquered them. And at dawn, the light of knowledge burst upon his mind, and he became Sama Sambuddha, the fully enlightened. Thus, Buddha arrived at his golden mean, or middle path, which he taught his disciples in Sarnath. He ministered to the sick, saying, "Whoever would serve me should also serve the sick." And he preached to the robber Angulimala, whose bloody hands had killed 999 victims, making him repent and then receiving him into the faith. He preached against the caste system and admitted women to his order. Finally, at the age of 80, Buddha, his work completed, lay down for the last repose. Bodh Gaya, 25 centuries after Buddha attained enlightenment. Beside the temple, the tree, direct descendant of the original Bodhi tree whose branches sheltered the Compassionate One in his meditation. Priests and pilgrims from every corner of Asia make the journey to this sacred spot to honor Buddha, who gave them the middle path, the path which shuns a life of self-indulgence, avoids self-mortification, and leads to insight and wisdom, to supreme enlightenment, to nirvana. For the Hindu holy man, smeared with ashes, or the Buddhist priest, for the countless millions of India and Asia, this land along the banks of the Ganges is more than earth and water. It is the birthplace of religion. And Ganges is the mother who nourished it. With straining back and aching sinew, the traffic of the Ganges is transported. And on her banks, the sweating coolie still carries his burden in the fashion of his forebears. Only now that burden is coal, for this is Patna, capital of the state of Bihar, whose lands are rich with black wealth. Here, for the first time, the Ganges is deep enough for navigation, and people board paddle wheelers, such as those used on the Mississippi in early days, for brief expeditions downriver. Entering West Bengal, where the Ganges divides into many streams, Hindus believe it does not continue into East Pakistan, but turns southward and becomes the Hooghly River that flows past Calcutta to the Bay of Bengal. With change of name, a new role is assumed. Now a river of commerce, her currents carry cargoes of jute from factory to city. Huge, sprawling, biggest city in India, Calcutta. In this city, which is almost smothered by the fallout of India's population explosion, the eye, roving the streets, captures 1,000 conflicting images, vivid, vital, unforgettable. Calcutta's inland port is one of the largest in the East. But more than 80 miles of Ganges River must first be navigated. Some of the most treacherous waters in the world, ripped by tides, sudden cyclones, and concealing hidden shoals before ships can reach the security of the harbor. For her last miles, the Ganges slips silently past lonely marshes and deserted islands. The stifling pre-monsoon heat lies across the face of the land like a hot steam towel. Under leaden skies, the river glides on to meet the ocean. From the beginning, Indians have looked to the skies with distrust, to the rivers with hope. For without fail, each summer from the heavens come the monsoon rains. If they are strong, the harvest in the rivers will be full. But if they are weak, the hungry millions will starve. so the cycle begins again. Without the monsoon, the river could not survive. Without the river, the people could not survive. So they worshipped the river, the sacred river, the Ganges.